Okay, so for this assignment, I chose to do ESPN, and they started in 1979, and their headquarters is in Bristol, Connecticut. It stands for Entertainment Sports Programming Network, and it revolutionized sports. Who owned it? 80% of it was owned by Walt Disney, 20% was owned by Hearst. It started with 1.4 million subscribers, and they invested about $1 million in 1979. SportsCenter was the first show introduced on ESPN, and it revolutionized sports. It was the first show to air 24 hours a day for sports, and then CNN followed suit right after, being the 24-hour for news. Chris Berman was the first main host of ESPN at the time. He was known for being the best at his job. He was very charismatic. He had different sayings for every show, or for every sport that was going on. 1980 was a big break for the NCAA, is because ESPN was granted that they were being able to broadcast the early games of the NCAA basketball tournament, which was a big thing back in the day because everybody loved college basketball. Dick Vitale was introduced as the first NCAA basketball broadcaster. He was an all-around basketball icon, and he was known for his witty comments throughout the basketball tournaments and his different sayings and his different words that he used. In 1981, the NFL Draft was created, and it was a big phenomenon. It was a one-day event, and ESPN had the ability to broadcast the first 7 rounds of the NFL Draft, which was only taking place for one day. Mel Kiper Jr. was first introduced in 1984. He became the go-to guy for the NFL Draft. He covered the whole NFL Draft and all the draft analysis, and he was also a key mock draft founder as well. In 2010 is when the NFL Draft became a 3-day event because there was just so much to do in one day, and they decided to do it on 3 days because it generated so much more revenue for ESPN and SportsCenter and all the athletes involved. In 1984, fans could only watch one college game weekly, which would be very frustrating for everybody who's a sports fan. And most fans had to listen to it. Most fans had to listen to their favorite teams on the radio, which was not as good as watching it on TV. In 1984, the Supreme Court ruled that the NCAA can no longer monopolize the rights to negotiate contracts for college football, and this was a major breakthrough for the NCAA and ESPN at the time because they can broadcast more games. ESPN took advantage of the Supreme Court ruling in 1984, and they started to broadcast NCAA college games all day on Saturday, which were for the football, and these games fans had the opportunity to watch all the games that they like rather than just one weekly, which was a major breakthrough. In 1987, another major breakthrough for ESPN was securing a contract for the NFL, and this contract was that they were being able to broadcast the first 8 regular season games, which was a first for any cable network at the time, and this was another major breakthrough for them. In 1992, ESPN launched its first national sports radio station, and it could be for XM, all that stuff. And it was including icons like Mike and Mike in the Morning, The Herd, or just any sports radio talk that was going on ESPN at the time, which could be heard over the radio. And in 1993, ESPN2 was launched, broadcasting the secondary sports. And these secondary sports were sports like the World Series of Poker, snowboarding, and eventually this generated that they could broadcast more NCAA games that were lower schools at the time. And in 1993, viewership grew up to a staggering 75 million subscribers, and this created much more revenue for ESPN, and this granted them the ability to broadcast even more sports and have more broadcasters doing their job. In 1984, ABC acquired controlling interest in ESPN, and they bought that for about $3.5 million from Walt Disney at the time. And in 1995, Walt Disney announced that he would acquire Capital Cities and ABC for $19 billion. In 2016, ESPN generated 88 million subscribers. ESPN broadcasted in 4 different languages, which they had to generate more broadcasters to be able to speak in those languages. And they produced more than 64,000 hours of programming through their platform. In 2017, ESPN reported that there was a loss of 4 million subscribers, which was about a 2.2% reduction in membership. Between 2011 and 2015, ESPN reported that they lost more than 7 million subscribers, which could have generated $1 billion in revenue in that course of time. In 2017, again, ESPN terminated over 100 of their top-rated employees, and this was due to a budget cut because of the recent sub loss, and then they just couldn't pay their broadcasters at the time.